The fulfilled prophecies, the first fire of Europe. A great European war shall break out. This was fulfilled in 1914 as the First World War. Saint Nicholas of Serbia said that Europe was scourged because it had driven Christ out of its heart, and the war was the beginning of greater sorrows. The collapse of thrones. Germany shall be defeated, and Russia and Austria brought to catastrophe. Fulfilled in 1917 to 1918 with revolutions and the fall of empires. St. John of Kronstadt had warned that Russia's throne would fall because of unbelief and betrayal of the Orthodox crown, the sword of the Hellenes. The sons of Agar shall be defeated by the Hellenes. Fulfilled in the Balkan Wars of 1912 and 1913. St. Cosmas Aetolian had declared that Greece would strike Turkey down, though her suffering was not yet complete. The Western betrayal. The Agarines shall be strengthened by the West, and the Greeks cast down. Fulfilled in 1922 at Smyrna, when Turkey triumphed with Western backing. St. Paisios warned that Turkey's strength would always come from Western betrayal until heaven intervened. The slaughter of the faithful. There shall be slaughter of the Orthodox peoples. Fulfilled in the Asia Minor catastrophe and the genocides of Christians. Elder Amphilochios of Patmos said the 20th century saw a martyrdom equal to the first centuries of the Church. The long anxiety. Great anxiety shall fall upon the Orthodox. Fulfilled in the years of persecution under communism. St. Porphyrios said hidden saints upheld the Church during those dark decades by prayer alone. The invasion from the Adriatic. Invasion of foreign troops shall come from the Adriatic. Woe unto the earth, for Hades is ready. Fulfilled in 1940 when Italy invaded Greece by sea. Elder Joseph the Hesychast said Greece's wartime suffering was a divine chastisement meant for purification. The fleeting glory of Agar. For a moment the sons of Agar shall appear great. Fulfilled in the 20th century when Arab oil wealth gave sudden power. St. Paisios said their greatness would be short-lived, preparing for their downfall. The second fire of Europe. A new war shall seize Europe. Fulfilled in 1939 as the Second World War. St. Nikolai Velimirovich said it revealed the emptiness of nations living without Christ, the compromised alliance. The Orthodox peoples shall be joined with Germany. Fulfilled in the 1940s when Bulgaria and Romania aligned with the Axis. Elder Cleopa of Romania spoke of his people's anguish, torn between political bonds and their faith. The fall of France. France shall be defeated by Germany. Fulfilled in 1940. St. Gabriel of Georgia said no power that turns from Christ can stand, however strong it appears. The breaking of empire revolution in India and separation from England. Fulfilled in 1947. St. John Maximovich said the collapse of empires was God's way of opening the nations for the gospel, the isles stripped bare. England shall be left to the Saxons alone. Fulfilled across the 20th century as the empire dissolved. St. Cosmas Aetolian foresaw that the crowns of Europe would be shattered, their glory reduced to dust. Fulfilled prophecies. The judgment on Agar. Victory of the Orthodox peoples and general slaughter of the sons of Agar. St. Paisios of Mount Athos declared that Turkey would be carved into 3 parts and Constantinople restored to Greece. Elder Ephraim of Arizona said Islam would be humbled before Orthodoxy, its strength dissolved as the faithful triumph. The great fear-anxiety shall grip the entire world. St. Porphyrios warned of a time when fear would enter every household, when families would eat in silence and hearts would tremble without peace. Elder Joseph the Hesychast said such fear would spread like a poison, touching every land. The Cloak of Despair. Despair shall cover the earth. St. Andrew the Fool for Christ said that men would cry for death and not find it, wandering without hope. St. Paisios also warned that without repentance, the nations would sink into sorrow deeper than war itself. The first siege of the 7 nations shall battle in Constantinople. 3 days and 3 nights of slaughter, the greatest prevailing over the 6. Elder Joseph of Vatapedi said the great powers will converge on the city and drown in its blood. St. Cosmas Aetolian foresaw fleets so vast they would darken the sea, all gathered for their destruction. The second siege of the 6. Then 6 shall turn against the 1. 3 days and 3 nights of slaughter shall rage again. St. Paisios foretold that rivers of blood would flow through Constantinople. Saint Cosmas said the armies of the nations would be consumed in 3 days, as though swallowed by the earth. The angel with the keys. The war shall cease by the intervention of an angel of God, and the city shall be delivered to the Hellenes. Saint Paisios spoke of this angel, who will hand the keys of the city to the Greeks. Elder Iakovos Tsalikis said this miracle will stun the nations, for no human army will have won it. The fall of Rome. The Latins shall submit to the faultless faith of the Orthodox. Saint Nilus of Mount Athos foretold that papism would collapse and Rome would fall. Saint Seraphim of Sarov foresaw the West bowing to Orthodoxy, reconciled to the one church, the river of light. The Orthodox faith shall move from east far into the west. Saint Seraphim of Sarov said Orthodoxy would shine as the lamp of the whole earth. Elder Ephraim of Arizona foretold that its light would reach the Americas and beyond, the terror of the barbarians. Fear and terror shall seize the barbarians before the true faith. Elder Ephraim declared that Islam would tremble and scatter, powerless before the triumph of Christ's church. Saint Paisios said the enemies of Orthodoxy would be dispersed like leaves before a storm, the one shepherd of Europe. Papism shall cease, and one patriarch shall be raised for the whole of Europe. Elder Iakovos Tsalikas foresaw the unity of the church under one shepherd. Elder Joseph of Vatapedi said all divisions would end, and Europe would be bound together in one altar and one confession, the end of affliction. After 50 years, the afflictions shall end. In the 7th season there shall be no exile, no misery, but all shall return to the rejoicing mother. Saint Hildegard of Bingen saw this same vision of renewal, when sorrow ceased and the bride of Christ shone in glory. Saint Andrew of Constantinople foresaw one flock under one shepherd, gathered at the end of the age into the eternal kingdom.